Hey everyone, welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Rainieri. Today's guest is the founder of Beer Girl Brewing Co., which offers consumers a crisp, refreshing lager with a lower ABV, less gluten, and no added sugar. The company aims to offer a more inclusive beer culture and has hosted activations at Stagecoach, as well as Coachella in collaboration with Kendall Jenner's tequila brand 818. You can find Beer Girl across Orange County at places including the Butchery, High Times, Total Wine, and more. I am so excited to welcome Caroline Renezeder Foulk to The Zest.
Thank you for having me. So nice to meet you and to be talking.
I'm so excited. I tried Beer Girl for the first time this past summer, and I'm usually someone who reaches for wine, but the branding caught my eye. And then I was reading about it on the can and I was like, wait, this is so cool. And then it tasted amazing. And I usually don't like beer, and I didn't get that gross bloated feeling that I usually do when I drink beer. So I was immediately a fan.
Oh my gosh. Yay. That's the exact consumer experience that we want. So that's really awesome to hear.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then I had my sister try it, and all my friends now love it. So I got them all.
Oh my gosh. That's so exciting. We'll have to send you some in the mail.
Oh my God. That'd be so great. So you grew up in Laguna Beach. What was your childhood like? And then how did, what brought out this creative entrepreneurial drive for you?
So I, grew up in Laguna Beach, born and raised. It's my favorite place in the world. Growing up here, I love Orange County. Laguna, it feels more like it functions as a small town.
It does.
So it really does. And I absolutely loved growing up here. I felt like I knew all my neighbors. Everybody in the community knew me, or not they knew me, right? But everybody just knew each other. And I had so many amazing friends growing up that continue to be, my best friends to this day. I'm a beach baby. I love the beach. You could see that through a lot of Beer Girls branding too, with our surf club. So I loved growing up here. It was very relaxed, and it's also a very creative community, which, potentially inspired some of my creative entrepreneurial energy, if you will. My parents are entrepreneurs. My dad is an entrepreneur. And so I grew up in a household where, my parents they're self-employed and they built their own company. So that was just what I was accustomed to. I was accustomed to watching my parents take big risks for high rewards, and they always pushed myself and my siblings into pursuing our passions. So I definitely credit that to my parents, that they allowed us to just explore a whole, array of different dreams and things that we could do with our lives, and just empowered us that with enough hard work and, diligent effort, we could make it happen.
That's so cool. What did your parents do? What kind of companies did they own?
So my dad is in real estate.
Nice.
Yeah. So he's been in all different facets of it. And then now they're in the brewing industry, which I'll get into a little bit more. Yeah. But, they have my dad has a very, very cool story about how he got into the industry. And, my grandparents immigrated here from Austria, and my grandmother was a refugee from Croatia. And my dad, always had this dream to build buildings. And the way that he got there is a whole story in and of itself. You should interview him because he's awesome.
Yeah, I know. That sounds incredible.
So he's done really cool things. So just watching that in the way that him and my mom have done that has just been super inspiring to see that, you really can achieve something if you put your mind to it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of really cool things, you were in the music industry at 14 and released a single at 18. How did that happen? What drew you to music?
Oh my gosh. So my whole life was music up until Beer Girl. So I grew up singing. Singing was my first love, first passion. I pursued music, any chance I could get. I was always taking voice lessons. I was in the school choir. I was in musical theater. And then I went to school for narrative studies with an emphasis in songwriting. And, I'd always beg my parents, please, 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 can I go to LA and start pursuing music? And their thing was, we'll support you being in, musicals and voice lessons, but we don't want you to pursue this until you're 18. So when I was 18 and I went to the University of Southern California, USC. When I got to USC, I was like, I'm putting a song out. And that's kind of when it all began. And living in LA, you just kind of got connected to the right people. And my world was music up until 2020, up until COVID.
Oh my God. What a cool. So, and then, after you graduated, you started Illuminate Creative Group. So can you talk a bit about what this company was and then how you came to work with people like Jason Pooh Bear Boyd, who worked with Justin Bieber and Sam Smith? Like, that's so
Yes.
cool.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. So I started Illuminate Creative Group. My whole thing, it sounds like cheesy looking back. I mean, I was 18, okay?
No, it's
So
not.
I got a tattoo. It's right here, of a little like moon. And I was in Peru
Cute.
on, I was on a service trip, and I heard the saying like the moon illuminates the darkness. And I felt like, okay, the music industry, the parts of it I didn't love was, going out and partying at night and having to be part of that culture that I never loved,
Yeah.
even at 18. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to be a light in this space. So hence the Illuminate name. But creating Illuminate was kind of, I looked at the music business similarly to how I looked at the beer business. I never looked at myself as just an artist. I was like, how can I actually make a lucrative business out of this and work my way up to that? So kind of similarly to CPG, when you're independent, you have to look for investors. You have to have people funding your career. And so that was like an LLC I would do all of that through. And then I would also host shows and put on shows and book other artists through Illuminate. And we would put on our own little music events, just different ways, to make money when you're an artist and, not making a lot of money at the beginning of your career. So I, fell in love with the music industry as while I was already in love with, singing and songwriting. So I loved doing the back end and seeing how the industry worked. So if it wasn't for COVID, I mean, everything happens for a reason. I would probably still be in that industry, but it's just crazy to see how everything works out and comes full circle in a lot of ways. And a lot of the skill sets can be applied to different industries.
Yeah. And then how did you come to work with Jason Boyd? And what role did he play with Justin Bieber?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me actually remember, because I don't even know if I remember how I got connected to him. So Pooh Bear, Jason Boyd, he has written a ton of the Justin Bieber hits, a ton of the Sam Smith hits. And we had gone to the same church. And so I didn't meet him through church, but I met him through, I had a manager at the time who said, I want you to come and meet Pooh Bear. He's, records at this one place in West Hollywood all the time. So I went and I met him, and he had this song called Show Me, and it sounded like a love song. And I remember him talking about it, and he was saying, it sounds like a love song, but it's really a worship song. And I said, that's always been like one of my goals in music, is to kind of have like worship, but, kind of have pop music, secular music that kind of had these hidden innuendos. And so he was like, you should sing this song. So I ended up singing Show Me, and he wrote it, I sang it, and that was the single that I put out. So it was a really, really cool experience, and he is just phenomenal. And it was one thing that was so cool. He has an amazing voice. And when you're in the recording booth and, you can't hit a certain line, or maybe I'm singing it a way that's not translating on the record, and he'll sing and say, hey, sing it like this. And his riffs, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Justin Bieber. Like, you could see how he kind of, not to say that Justin Bieber, he's his own artist, but just, influenced a lot of those songs that I grew up loving so much. So that was really cool.
Oh my God, what a cool experience.
It was awesome.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. So then tell me how you came to work with Wagon Wheel Brewing.
Okay. So Wagon Wheel Brewing Company is my family's brewery. And back in 2020, the whole music industry had shut down. And I was living in LA. My parents lived in Laguna. And the beaches were all open in Laguna. So at least for a short period of time. So I was like, I'm booking it back down to Orange County, because why would I be in my little shoebox, when I could be down at the beach? So I moved back down, and at the time, the only way that I was, making any kind of income was by going out and performing as an opening act or throwing shows and booking other artists. So there was no way for me to make money. I wasn't getting enough streams to, have that be lucrative. I didn't have a big enough social media presence, all of those things. And so I I'm very type A and I like to know what my next plan is. So I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to learn? So my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, was doing a real estate certificate through Cornell. And I said, I'm going to do that with you. So I did that with him through COVID. I learned a bunch about real estate. And then I said, I might as well start to learn my family business. And so I went and I started working with my parents, and they said, we really want to open a brewery. We've always had this like dream to develop the brewery, and there were 100 reasons why they wanted to get into it. And so I said, okay, I'll work on the development team. So in 2020, we built Wagon Wheel from the ground up. It was a dirt shell. We constructed the whole thing, 8,500 square foot, big brewing facility, restaurant. And when it came time to open it, we decided we wanted to operate it ourselves. So I ended up operating it for about a year, 2 years, alongside the amazing team that we had put, that we have up at Wagon Wheel. And it was there that I came up with the idea for Beer Girl.
Yeah. Well, just first of all, how old were you when you were doing all that?
Okay, let me think. I graduated from college in 2019. So
you were so young.
I was young. I was 23. 24.
No.
Yeah. 24
God,
maybe.
You're amazing. I could not do that at 23.
Oh my
That's incredible.
Thank you. I'm maybe a little bit too tenacious, but
no, that's such an incredible drive. Well, how did the idea for Beer Girl first hit you, and what was your mission from the day one?
Yeah. So a few things happened. This was back in 2022, 2023. So I had the idea when we were first contract brewing our Wagon Wheel beer, and I would notice that a common consensus I would see amongst women and a lot of men was, beer makes me feel too heavy and bloated. And that's why I'm not trying one of your beers. And at the time, I was also diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. I found out autoimmune is so crazy because you get like 100 different diagnoses, but the consistent one I kept getting was Lyme disease. And so I was really struggling with my health from like all of 2022 up until like middle of 2023. And so at the time I had to cut all sugar, all gluten, all alcohol out of my diet. And I was hoping to open and run a brewery. So, and I've always loved beer. I've always been a beer girl, hence the name. And I, went to our head brewer, and I was getting married the following summer, in 2023. And I said, for my wedding, I really want to have a beer that I can drink. At that point, I'm going to add alcohol back into my diet, and I really want to have a beer that I can enjoy. I have always loved Mexican style lagers, knowing that they're made from corn, not wheat. And so I said, why don't we take our Mexican style lager that was one of our top performers, and let's take the gluten as far down as we can, to, just be rid of that beer belly bloat. I was thinking a lot about myself, just like at my wedding, I don't want to be bloated. And then also because I hadn't been drinking, I was like, I want it to be low ABV. So I'm not absolutely plastered at my wedding. Right. And so that's what we did. And then I tried it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And other people were trying and going, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And that's when I knew that this was something that was bigger than just, my personal preference. And it went back to that original thought that I had, where I would see people opt for seltzers and ciders that we didn't make in house. And I would say, there's a consumer that is not trying one of these amazing craft beers, which I didn't necessarily understand. I understand maybe you don't want to drink 3 hazy IPAs, but I would always try them and think, oh, they're amazing. But I'm like, there's a demographic that when they come to a brewery, they opt for wine, seltzer, and cider. So that's me. Yeah, let's have Beer Girl cater to them. And the way that it just was received was so amazing that's when I knew this needed to be more widely distributed. And I started researching and noticing, there was a huge gap in the market, in multiple markets. So the low ABV segment, I think with Beer Girl, a lot of people think, our mission is to target women and bring them into the category, which that's, our goal really though, is to target all consumers who opt for wine, seltzer, and cider. So that's why our branding is also a little bit more, it's red and white. There's nothing inherently feminine about it. And the name is, a fun, just like a fun name. And but our goal is really to be a leader in the low ABV category and to bring more optionality and to the beer set, something a little bit healthier. And that's really the goal, is to cater to all men and women and be a leader in the low ABV space.
Yeah, my husband loved it too. He like tried because he's a hazy IPA drinker, but he tried it and he's like, this is so good. But
Totally.
like, how did you come up with the formula? Like, were you just like tweaking it ever so slightly until?
Yeah. So we had been at the time, gosh, I can't remember the exact number of beers that we had been up to, but before we even opened Wagon Wheel, we were contract brewing for about a year. And our head brewer, his name is Colin. He's amazing. He was R&Ding a ton of different recipes, and our Mexican lager was my favorite. And so he had kind of, I think, gotten to know what I would like. And when I said 3.5%, he's like, you're crazy, because, you know, he's a craft beer connoisseur. Like, you know, they want to make their higher ABV beverages. But when we just, you know, we pulled down the ABV, and oftentimes maybe that will like dilute the taste, but it didn't. And I credit that fully to him. It really didn't have anything to do with me, because, you know, he's the one that's making the recipe happen behind the scenes. And I'm tasting it and telling him what I like, you know, and tweaking it from that perspective. But that's how we got there. We took the base of our Mexican style lager and then tweaked it to have, to be in that 3.5% gluten reduced space.
Got it. Well, how is your Lyme's disease now?
So it's way better.
Good.
It is very much healed. It took a lot of time and effort. I'm definitely healthier for it, for sure. And like better off. I created a lot of different healthy habits. It definitely changed. I've always had a healthy lifestyle, but it definitely flipped like my whole life around in a lot of ways. But now looking back, I'm grateful, because it's these habits that I want to have in my life, you know? So I just have to be more cognizant. And honestly, like I don't drink anything but Beer Girl now, because my body now doesn't react well to sugar, to gluten, or to alcohol. So low ABV, gluten reduced. I mean, it's just very genuine to me. And that's why I'm so passionate about it too, is I can really go to a consumer and say like, I can't tell you that this beer is healthy, right? It's a beer. Like, it's not like it's an elixir, but I can tell you that this product will not make you feel the way that other products in the market will make you feel.
Yeah, right. That's so interesting. And honestly, like that makes me like feel healthier. Like feels like it's a healthier option now.
Yeah.
Also, just to point out, Justin Bieber has Lyme's disease too. So now I'm like, you guys have two things in common.
Yeah, two things in common. Oh my gosh. And a lot of the symptoms, Lyme disease is crazy. It like attacks your neurological system, which is, I mean, in some people, I think that's actually what happened to Justin Bieber with like his eyes and stuff, like twitching. And that happened to me too. It was all mostly neurological symptoms, which was crazy.
Oh God, I'm so sorry you went through that.
Thank you. But you know, it happens.
Yeah. Well, what kind of feedback have you gotten from people, especially women, about the beer?
Oh my gosh, we've gotten such good feedback. I mean, the testimony that you said at the beginning of that's awesome. And that's, you know, the feedback that we're looking for is, I, you know, don't typically love beer, but I love this. And another common answer that we get from a lot of men is that, you know, I kind of anticipated that this product was going to be, and from a lot of women, you know, like women who love their hazy IPAs as well, which one of our sales and marketing reps, she loves hazy IPAs. And so it's always good to look to her for feedback. But I think a common consensus is, you know, this is going to taste a little bit diluted or like watery. And then people try it and they go, oh my gosh, no, this is just a super sessionable lager. And those who love having heavier beers can sit and have 3-4 Beer Girls and, you know, sit at the bar and have them over the course of a few hours and not leave feeling so weighed down.
Right. Totally. Also, I want to point out, I was in a bathing suit when I was drinking this and like,
okay, good.
So I was like, and I'm not bloated. So this is great.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Well, as I mentioned in the intro, you've had activations at Stagecoach and at Coachella. You're part of the 818 Outpost, which is so cool. So what were those moments like seeing your brand like out in the wild at these huge festivals?
It was so cool. I feel like there's so much lead up to those events. Like we had been in talks with 818 for a few months. And then, you know, I was told that Kendall like hand select all of the brands because she's super into the aesthetics from those who want to be part of it. So that was the moment where I was like, that's really cool to see, because I'm such a fan of her and her branding with 818 that I'm like, that's really cool that she acknowledged that in us. The actual event, it's like 110 degrees out there. And so it was, and we're not, we're still a startup. And so it was me and my husband and one of our employees, Carly, setting up everything. So we got there the morning of and we're loading all of our stuff in. So we're doing that all ourselves and I'm trying to look cute. So I'm already like in my outfit, trying to look cute for the day, but I'm just like sweating. And, but it was really cool and surreal to see that. For sure. I think even looking back, like in the moment when you're working so hard, you don't even realize that, oh, wow, this is a really cool accomplishment. You're just like, it's the accomplishment in the moment when you get the email that says, oh yeah, you're in. And then it's like, okay, what do we do next? Which that's something I'm actually trying to work on as a founder.
I'm type A and I totally understand that mindset.
Yeah. But it was really cool. But festival season, by the end of it, we were tired.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
wow, what an amazing compliment that she like loved your branding. That's
I
feel like so good.
That was really that was one of the coolest parts for me for sure.
Yeah, and now you guys are in Sprouts across Arizona, hopefully California next. On tap in liquor stores in Southern California, and you're in stores like Total Wine and Irvine Ranch Market, which I love that place. But what's been your biggest learning curve with self-distribution and scaling the brand? Because I know like nothing about that.
Yeah. So self-distribution, California is one of the only states that you can do it. So it's really cool.
Ooh, really?
You see a lot of brands coming out of California, and that's because, one of the reasons is because you can self-distribute. So what that means is in alcohol, we have 3-tier beverage laws. So myself as the supplier can't sell directly to the retailer. So I can't go straight to Sprouts and say, hey, buy my beer. I have to sell through a distributor. And those distributors are oftentimes looking for a book of business to bring on to the company or to bring on to their book before they decide to take you on. So as a new startup, it's really hard because you say, hey, I have this great concept, I have this great idea, but unless you're, have a celebrity partnered with you or something, it's very hard to go to a distributor and say, hey, take a chance on me. So I got advice to, open up as many accounts as I could in California independently. And then take that book of business to a distributor and say, hey, now I have this monetary value that I've built, and let me now give this to you. And now you're going to make, a cut of the money on this. And so with self-distribution, though, it comes with its own challenges because number one, a lot of tap handles are reserved for specific distributors. So if we're going into a tap handle or going and trying to get tap placement as an independent, it can be more difficult. And then also you're managing all the logistics, all the deliveries, all of your AP, tracking down invoices, everything. And so it adds on a whole nother facet of the business. But what was really cool about that is we got to see it from the back end, how it works. So now everywhere that we expand to, we'll have a distributor partner, and it will get easier because you start to build, momentum and people start to know your brand. But we'll be able to know what the distributor wants, how to motivate them. And, it's always good as a startup to like see the backs of, 20 different Total Wines at 3 a.m. And we had our own van, and we have 3 employees who are badass. They're so awesome. Just, that we trained and who are building our brand out in the market every day. So I don't know if that answered your question. I think I more just explained what distribution was.
Finally understand. That was the clearest way I've ever heard what self-distribution is. Like, did you teach yourself all of this like while you were doing it, or did you?
Yeah. I taught myself all of it, which is crazy. And what's been cool too is, so my husband is also fully involved. And so he's also taught himself, and our 3 reps, we've all been learning together, but we've learned fast. We've learned very fast. So that's been cool.
Yeah. So cool. Well, why did you guys pick Arizona as your first
We picked Arizona. So we have developed a great relationship with Sprouts, and that is their headquarters. They're headquartered in Arizona. So they wanted to launch us in the state and see how we performed. And that's really the reason why. And then Arizona was always on our radar. I think from a distribution standpoint, it functions almost more similarly to Southern California than even Southern California to Northern California. And, similar climate, it doesn't get cold. So light lagers do really well there. I mean, it gets relatively, it doesn't get cold, right?
Yeah.
So with light lagers, it was a great market for us to go into. And, the college campus is there. We know that Beer Girl will thrive with the fraternities and with the sorority. So we want to lean into states that have, big college presences as well.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also a big destination for bachelorette parties too.
Totally.
So, yeah,
100%.
That's smart. So you recently added an amber lager to the mix alongside your Mexican style lighter lager. So what inspired the new flavor and how do you decide kind of what's next in the lineup?
Yeah. So the amber lager, we initially wanted to launch it as a seasonal option. So going into the fall, we launched it in August to try to get, more draft sales going into the fall. It is still 3.5% gluten reduced. All of our beers will be, but it was, it's a little bit maltier, a little bit richer, and it is perfect for fall pairings. And then the can, I really wanted to make a red can for fall, and it's done so well. We're going to keep it on as a permanent SKU. But I think that seasonality, when you look at the way that I look at SKUs, this is just my rationale, I don't know if it's everybody's, but I think you want to have different SKUs that apply to different seasons. And then you want to have a few that can be looked at year round.
Yeah, totally. That's so cool that it's a fall one and now it's permanent. I love that. I need to try that one. What's what's a popular amber lager that people would have tried? I don't know beer well.
Yeah. So Modella Negra. So you have Modella, you have Modella Negra. So that's kind of Beer Girl Amber. So they're both light lagers. One just has a little bit of if you pour it into a glass, the light lager is very light and, a little bit golden hued. And then the amber lager is more brown and it tastes more like fall. It's a little bit toastier. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I want to go and try that. Well, I'm also in love with you guys' merch. It's so cute.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the sign behind you is so cute too. But how important is the lifestyle element when you think about building the brand's culture?
I think it's so important. And I think that that's something that I learned from music is that how do you create a fan of an artist? How do you or why are people falling in love with certain artists or certain influencers? It's because they love their music. They love, the product. That's their product, right? If you will. But then they also love their lifestyle and they love how they can apply that to their lifestyle. So I felt that to really create fandom of Beer Girl, it goes beyond the beer and it goes into what is this brand telling me from a lifestyle perspective. If I have a Beer Girl in my hand, what does that mean about my lifestyle? And so I thought that that's really how we would create a loyal consumer, is to make them feel like they're part of our brand in a whole new way rather than just, buying it at the liquor store and not knowing anything about us.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And also when I did see the branding, I immediately was I want that on a hat. It's so
right.
Cute.
Isn't it fun? Well, we have trucker hats. We have dad caps. And they're really cute.
They're so cute. Well, is there anything coming up in 2026 that you want listeners to keep an eye out for?
Oh my gosh, so much. I feel like I can't divulge much at this moment, but we could definitely do a follow-up or something. But so much in the new year for those in Southern California, so much in Southern California, then so much for Beer Girl just on a different scale too. And the way that we're growing is really, really exciting. So a lot to look out for top of the year. I'd say if you want to be up to date, just keep track of our social media. That's where we're posting everything. I'm trying to post as much as we can in live time with what's going on. So that's where we'll be putting all that out there.
So exciting. I cannot wait. Well, we are coming to the end of our time. Before I let you go, I have 3 final questions for you that we call the Thoughtful 3. So first, what's something surprising or unexpected about being an entrepreneur that people rarely talk about?
I feel like there's a lot, but I'll speak to what I was mentioning earlier a little bit. I think that a lot of times the people who get put or who end up becoming entrepreneurs are people who, are willing to take risks, but also people who are super ambitious. And I think sometimes ambition, it's like a two-sided coin. It is amazing and it's what gets you there, but then it can also be the thing that makes you not content with where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, I always try to check myself to say where I was a year ago. Like I would look at myself now and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did all that in a year. That's amazing. But me on a day to day is I need to be looking to the next year. And, I haven't done enough in this last year and I should have done more. And even when you're working around the clock, And so I try to reality check myself. And I don't think it's talked enough about enough that entrepreneurs need to, I don't know, even talking to my other friends who are in the entrepreneurial space, just like remind each other of how much you've done and that you're doing great. And just be reminded of like the mission behind what you're doing. Cause that always brings me back down to earth.
God, that's literally so relatable. I have friends who, even just regular jobs and stuff, they feel the same way. So that's helpful to just remember to like check yourself and be like grateful for where you're at now.
Totally.
Well, reflecting on your journey with Beer Girl, what is one thing that you wish you would have known before launching the brand? If there's anything.
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so much. Like I wish that I knew everything I didn't know because then we'd be like further along now. But I do think that everything happens for a reason. And the things that you learn when you start a business are what is going to end up setting you up for the rest of your career. And, in 25 years, when I'm on a different business, I'll look back and say, oh, that was a lesson that I learned in my first few months of starting Beer Girl. And at the time I go, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Or I made this mistake, or we shouldn't have invested in this. We should have invested in that. But I think it all comes full circle. So I can't say that there's anything I would, say that I wish I knew, because I'm glad that I learned the way I did.
Yeah, definitely. Well, last, what advice would you give to other women hoping to break into the beverage industry and build a successful brand?
Yeah. My gosh, so many things. I'm like, where do I even begin? I think just believing in yourself enough to start. Like starting is the hardest part, I think, and putting yourself out there and not being afraid of what the people in your corner are going to say. Because oftentimes I think when you're afraid to come out with something that you're wanting to do, whether it's a song or a podcast or, pursuing social media or starting a beer company, you're afraid of like what the 5 to 10 people who are closest to you are going to say. And it's like, get that out of your head. Because if they're really your friends, they're not going to care. And like, it's cringe until it's not cringe anymore. Right. Then all of a sudden everybody is doing it. And so just go for it. And then particularly to being like a female in the beverage space, which is, heavily male dominated, it's just believe in yourself. Like you deserve to be in that room. And be smart and tactical with how you approach these things, or, getting into the rooms, and just be confident. Like you're as deserving to be in those rooms, and you belong there. And just like keep reminding yourself that you do, even when things are nerve-wracking. And I think that also applies to anyone who's getting into a new industry.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I feel like so inspired now. And now I want to like start my own business, but
oh my gosh,
you're so intelligent. And I love learning everything that you shared with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is so fun.